Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide worldwide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Our mission is to provide a safe space for everyone across the world to be able to share their voice. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living. Joining me is the star of our show, and we have a very special guest backstage. Let's welcome Zane Carson Carruth to the program. Zane, come on out. Hello.
Hi. Happy to be here.
So good to see you, Zane. For people who haven't met you before, I just want to say a big hello to our new viewers on E360 TV. We welcome everyone who is watching from Amazon, from Apple TV, from Roku, Android devices, and of course, the 10 platforms that we are streaming live to right now on USA Global TV and Radio. Zane, you are a certified etiquette and protocol professional and an award-winning international author. Tell us why it's so important for you to do this show and help bring awareness to other people around the world.
Well, that's a very good question. I'm a big advocate and a big believer in reading to your children, reading for yourself, and just exposing them to everything that you can find in a book, which is endless. And I think this program is a good platform for that, to remind people, pick up a book and read it to your children. Get out of your comfort zone. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Zane. And as you know, I have your books and I'm reading them all the time. I also introduced them to my great niece when she was just here recently. She had a big smile on her face. And children's books are not just for children, they're also for adults because there's always a lesson in there. So I'd love if you would just share, what is the lesson that you want people to take away from getting to know Abella?
Well, the theme through all of my books is kindness and friendship, and not to kick your friends when they're down, because we all say things we wish we hadn't said. We do things we wish we hadn't done. The main thing is just not being supportive to your friends. It's important to just go, you'll be fine. Just apologize. It'll all be fine. That's the main takeaway of my books, which I think is vital. I think that's very important in today's dog-eat-dog world, which we will talk to JANINE about that because she's in a very competitive business, which will be interesting.
Absolutely. Thank you. So let's bring out our guest. Her name is JANINE IANNARELLI, and she is somebody who has made incredible inroads in what would typically be thought to be a male-dominated industry, an industry where as women, we are in our masculine energy, pushing through, and sometimes we forget that softness, that sweetness, that femininity. She is the founder and president of PAR Avion Limited. Let's welcome JANINE to the program. Hi, JANINE.
Hello, and thank you for the invitation to join you and your audience today.
Thank you so much for being with us. A question that comes to mind as I just did the brief introduction is, in my experience, you are in a field that is highly competitive and it's been dominated by men. I know I was over on the Clubhouse app during the pandemic and there were a number of people talking about sales of airplanes, and they were typically men. How did you break into this industry?
I wish there was a glamorous route to it, but it really was all quite by accident. That proverbial being in the right place at the right time and having the right skill set. The latter part I came to discover as time went by. And that's the simple truth of how I found myself in this very dynamic industry.
Thanks so much, Janine. Zane?
Well, Janine, how did you manage to maintain your femininity? Because I know it's an aggressive business just by talking to you and the things that you go through. How do you maintain that?
Really good question. And I think it's perhaps an identity that I think women struggle with maybe in the early part of my career, the earlier decades. I don't want to go there with the year just yet, as opposed to today, the young women who find themselves having greater free reign in how they write their own path to success. For me, I mean, one, I identify that I've always had a very feminine side, but hand in hand with that feminine side is a very strong side. And the strong side is a gift that was given to me, not just from my mother, but my father, who encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do. So you had the male, female role models that followed to some degree the traditional roles that they play, but also encouraged me to break boundaries that were quite clear early on when I was in high school and college, but also were being broken and pushed further out, the boundaries, if you will. And with that kind of elasticity, you get to retain a sense of self. And I will also say that a strong sense of self is what I possess, and that I never felt that I had to take on the identity of my male counterparts to be equally successful. In fact, I would say that being a woman in a male-dominated industry can, to some degree, be an advantage.
Well, you are certainly very confident, and that comes through in your speech and your everything that you say and do. What do you contribute helped you to gain that confidence? Any certain experiences?
That's another good question because, I think one of the things that young women struggle with is a confidence, and some more so than others, myself included. I mean, I can't say that I came into the workforce at the age of 22 and possessed this strong sense of confidence. What I probably did well was mask it, where there's a bit of uncertainty. And I adopted that means of let's listen, let's learn, let's study, let's test the waters. And each time you test the water or you attempt something, and I have to say, if you're successful at it, it is a confidence builder. And my superiors recognize that because they would task me with something a little bit more challenging each and every time I demonstrated them the capability to manage it. And I learned that lesson and employed that with people who have come to work for me, where I would see that they were feeling a bit overwhelmed or they might feel a little unsure of themselves. And in a subtle way, I let them take a step back so they can accomplish an easier task that rebuilds the confidence to move forward and do something much more challenging. For me, I would say that's the key. And then, of course, you get 10, 20, 30 years into a career and you don't have a major blemish on your career. How could you not be confident at that point? You obviously have been doing something right.
Well, I think that is wonderful to hear. And I know that to be personally true about you. You travel extensively in your job. How do you manage to fit all of this in?
Barely. So another important skill set I learned, and I credit a recruiter at my university, unbeknownst to them, they were teaching us a skill set that I took elsewhere in my life as opposed to their company. And that was to prioritize and time management. I had never heard the concept of time management prior to that. And they broke it down into not just obviously taking your day and figuring out what you're going to do to get through the day, was to look at everything you had to do and put it into categories. Category A might be can't wait, must get it done. Category B is this is the very next task that you do once you get the emergency ones out of the way. And category C was, well, when I get around to it, I get around to it. Not only does that help to manage your time and balance the workload, it takes the stress off the day. Because if you're staring at 1,000 different things and watching the clock click, it is really the recipe for disaster, failure. To me, it's just such a negative energy. So I look at the day, I manage the time. I love to travel because travel for me has been the greatest equalizer as to how you manage your time. When I have a looming trip, I am at my peak performance that week before the trip because everything got put on hold now needs to get done.
Well, that's right. One thing that I have to do is start with the most difficult task first, the one that I dread. It's called, what do they call, eat the frog? Have you heard
Eat
that
that
expression?
frog.
Just eat the frog, get it over with, and then go on to the next thing. But yeah, I agree with you. Travel is wonderful. It exposes you to so many fascinating people. I remember sitting in first class, one of my very first business trips, and sitting next to me was a retired CFO of some huge company, but he was retired. So, you know, he at one time he was at the top of his game, but he was still very nice. But that was an eye opener to me that, you know, life just runs its course. So just, you can't make any assumptions about people.
No, exactly. You're spot on.
Janine, I have a question for you. You provide something that in some people's minds is strictly luxury. But the truth is, when you are someone who has a very busy schedule, it makes perfect sense to have your own transportation because you're not bound by limitations that you would be otherwise. Can you explain a little bit more to our audience about the value of having your own plane, your own jet, so that you can actually accomplish things that other people would not be able to because you're in control of what you're doing and when you're doing it?
This is a nice segue into time management, because an aircraft is a time machine. I learned something when I was considering a career in advertising, and I remember the head of a media department for one of the big agencies said, media is something that once that time is spent, you cannot recapture it. I mean, you either sell the spot or you don't. And it's the same thing about our lives. Every hour counts. And I have to say that the older I get, I count those minutes now too. So what an airplane does is give you back that time. It is really the one tool in life that helps you manage your lifestyle, your time, your workload so much better. It truly is a business tool. Now, we refer to it in part as private transportation, but it is, for the vast majority of the users of this mode of transportation, a means by which to grow, to develop, to compete successfully within their own industry. Because I've heard stories, I use this as an example, that in disaster recovery, the company that can get there first is usually the one that gets the job. It was enough so that it motivated a company whose CEO I had gotten to know to buy an airplane so they could beat their competitors to the job site. That's what an aircraft does for individuals and for corporations, helps them manage their time.
Well, not only that, it's a huge stress reliever, knowing you don't have to worry about missing your connection. It's going to take off when you show up, when you tell the pilot, let's go. To me, that's invaluable, having that stress removed.
As is flexibility. Imagine if your schedule changes mid-stride. Imagine that you have to be somewhere else. This is what corporate private transportation does for the individual, the flexibility to do what you need to do. And, you know, another myth is that it's reserved for the elite few, and that's not true whatsoever. I mean, certainly the billionaires of the world enjoy the comfort, convenience, and security of flying by this mode of transportation. But companies are much more frugal and, let's say, economic about their utilization of this asset. This is an aircraft that's available to key members of the team, regardless of where they are, what departments. It's about being efficient and preserving the asset and using it to its fullest extent.
Yes, it's another confidence booster, I think, in your job to have that capability.
Absolutely. Makes you competitive to have that asset available to you.
Absolutely. Janine, our show today is Elegance, Polish Demeanor, and Posh Living. And the reason I bring that up is because I know how important it is for Zane, for you, for myself, to still carry ourselves with grace, with dignity, and acting in a way where we are respectful of others. And in an industry where it's been predominantly male, and I'm not saying anything about men, but sometimes we don't find that graciousness or that compassion and empathy. How do you use those characteristics to help you in the work that you do?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that good manners have never gone out of style. And I have watched as time go by that society and the let's say, the expectations of society for behavior has changed quite a bit, and not necessarily for the better. But at a certain level, and certainly in some industries more so than others, it's evidence of how sophisticated the potential business partner is by the way they conduct themselves. And it's not just classical manners in terms of table manners and manner of speech. It also has to do with regard for other people. We see it broadcast across the news day in, day out about having respect for your fellow man, looking towards diversity, embracing everyone regardless of who they are. And I applaud that heightened awareness that's coming with it. It almost in a way is a bit sad that it has to be taught in the public domain as opposed to something that should be learned as you grow at home and go out into the world. And for myself, I do my best to police my behavior as much as possible. I mean, look, I think Zane pointed it out early on very well that sometimes you just have to let go. If you have a bad day, you say something you didn't mean to, you immediately apologize for it. And that's something that I don't find with many people is they're not quick to own anything that might have gone wrong. Deflection is something that I see more of. And I try to do the opposite. If I slipped up, I'm going to be the first to say, I did that, own it. Now let's work together to try to remedy. If it's, I won't go there, the serious faux pas, because that I can't find any in my career, but I punish myself more than I think anyone else would if I feel I made a misstep. But I think a key attribute to learning and good etiquette is learning how to be a good listener. If you get stuck, just stop and listen, and the answer will come.
Well, those are very good points, especially owning it right away. Then that way you talk about it, you admit it, and then you don't have to agonize over it when you're trying to sleep or deal with your life. I like that. I have to just go right out there, and I have to apologize a lot for stuff. So, and I like to do it just right away and get it off the table. But yes, and it's talking about great listeners. Now that's what we have with Dr. Jacalyn. She is an elevated listener, and it's remarkable. I've taken some of her classes, so you can tell us a little bit more about that.
So thank you. So to your point, Janine, listening is so important. And I feel like as a global society, that's where we kind of go off track, because when we're speaking, the other person's thinking something in their mind. They're thinking, oh, I don't like what she just said. Oh, I don't agree with what she just said. And now you're no longer totally present. So how do you practice that mindfulness and those elevated listening skills on a regular basis? Because the world definitely needs more than that.
Well, I think I view myself as rather lucky, having been a person who's practiced good listening for decades now. I once had a mentor who told me that everybody hears, but not everybody listens, and that listening is a harder skill set than speaking. And I really contemplated that back in my 20s, and I said, that's absolutely right. And because I work in the international arena, one of the challenges I have found is, regardless of what country you're in, if English is not a first language, there is something getting lost in translation. I mean, everybody's speaking English in a certain country, but not everybody is hearing the exact same thing. So I have learned to listen very carefully, somewhat read between the lines, take in all the empirical data, which means, if we're in a certain setting that we're having a discussion about, let's say, an aircraft component or the aircraft itself, there are visual tools that I can make use of, as well as what I'm hearing from the person explaining the matter. And then I think about the fact that their choice of words might have been not quite as descriptive had another word in the English language, had English been a first language. Practice that for decades. And then suddenly when you come home and you listen to people, they can say 3 words and I already have it figured out. No, I'm joking. But I know where we're headed with this conversation. And then the next great skill I get to practice is patience. Wait till they finish saying their piece before I have a comment.
Yeah, that's a good point. And parroting back especially where you're talking about people not English being their first language, parroting it back, I think is very helpful. I have to do that with my husband a lot. So just to make sure we're on the same page, that you know how that goes. But anyway, I think that's invaluable to parrot back.
That's really important observation and comment, Zane, because think about it. Flight crews read back to the controller what they just heard to make sure that they got it clearly.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Janine, a question I have for you, and then I'm going to go over to Zane as well, is especially on LinkedIn, there's so much being pushed out in terms of, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. And usually these cold sales attempts are completely off point. So when you're selling something that is at a high end, what is the importance of understanding your client's needs versus telling them the benefits that they're going to get by what it is that you're bringing? Does one have more priority than another?
So the first thing is, I don't make the assumption that an audience, that unless they've directly communicated with me, needs what I have to sell. I know exactly what you're talking about on LinkedIn. I personally find it a bit offensive that when someone asks you for a connection, the very next inbox message you get is they're trying to sell you a service. They're trying to tell you how to do your business. They're trying to tell you that they'll elevate your presence. And, I politely decline in most cases. And if they persist, the next action I take is ID link. I mean, that's the reward you get for being too pushy as a salesperson. What I do, and again, it's a very bespoke product that I offer. We don't necessarily help people identify a need. But if I were going down that path, let's say cold calling on a company that doesn't currently own an aircraft, it might be more of an introduction to a mode of transportation as opposed to this will change your life. It's more along the lines of, have you considered what are your current travel needs at this moment? Think about this option. And if you are so inclined, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. And those were attempts that I've made, let's say early on in my career, and we do it through direct mail as opposed to email. And if you do a mail out of 100 and you got one response, we felt like we hit a home run. But to push the product, this is just something where people know whether they need it or not. It's not something that I can convince someone of their need, nor would I feel comfortable in doing that, because the purchase price is the least of the expenses that they are going to encounter in the entire time of ownership.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I hope our audience takes away something from that. All this pushiness isn't going to get you anywhere except a lost connection and possible lost relationship in the future.
What do we have to look forward to in travel right now? Airline travel, there's just been a whole lot of delays, canceled flights, a lot of changes. Do you see any improvement in that?
Not really. I mean, the problems that existed through the course of the past year are still there. We just get reprieves from them because we get away from holiday travel. Summer vacation is over, but the underlying issues have not really changed. Let's start with personnel. So the airlines went through a major reshuffling in the pandemic. I mean, essentially, it was a knee-jerk reaction to furlough tens of thousands of skilled employees, many of whom took retirement and have no intention of returning to the workforce. So now you have a people deficit, which was probably their most important asset going forward. Then, because you are working existing crews to the bone, there are expectations now from the unions, and I speak solely to commercial aviation, that is increased pay for increased manpower or working hours, working conditions. Airline management. I mean, we've seen the good and the bad in the last 6 months without naming names, and some have handled it much better than others. So my advice to the traveling public is be prepared and have a contingency plan in place if you're especially going to travel around the upcoming holidays.
Well, that helps us have a little bit more patience and a greater understanding here and that, because I'm sure the airlines are doing the very best that they can, but so are the employees, because they're being put through a lot of extra work, and it affects people in their attitude and the way they treat their clients and their passengers.
Yeah, I think we've all run into a lot of disgruntled everybody, whether it's passengers or the flight crews themselves. I certainly, and Zane, I think you had this experience as well. 4th of July weekend was a complete disaster. I was finally a victim of all those stories you see on TV with long lines and piles of luggage and stranded passengers. And yeah, I was fully prepared to tell them how to do it better, but I didn't think anyone would listen to me.
And I bet you could have.
No
We got
doubt.
stranded on a train ride. I mean, we had to stay an extra day in New York because the train, I was stunned. We thought, well, we'll take the train. That's guaranteed to get us home. Well, it wasn't. We didn't get home till the next day.
Yeah.
Now, so I just think there's a big cosmic thing out there for travel right now. Just a big cloud hanging over our head.
And I think that's another big plus as to why people should consider private travel by air. So, Janine, as we come to the close to the end of the show, would you be able to share maybe an example of how you worked with an organization or a leader and they decided to go this route, and then whatever the ensuing changes were that brought value to their business?
Oh, yeah, I have a great one. Great client of mine. Entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. And I remember the very first phone call he made to my company was 10 years prior to his actually buying an airplane. And he was telling us on how he's building his business, and he was going to acquire an aircraft, and the company was going through significant growth phase. And I remember another call, you don't necessarily take some of these people very seriously because, again, working in an industry where things move very fast and, working in a boutique size company, limited personnel, limited resources. So you have to allocate those resources very carefully. And you have a very pleasant, interesting, dynamic individual saying, so I'm going to move offshore and do my business for a little bit, build the company. And, in a few years, we'll be looking. And I'm like, okay, good, great. Well, he did exactly that. And it took another company. He parlayed that into a public company, sold it, came to me and bought his first airplane. And we talked about how would this aircraft benefit his travel. And some of it was going to be facilitating private, and the rest of it was out to grow his business. I would like to say that that's maybe tenacity on both our part, his to mine. And 3, speaks to something that I can't quite put my finger on, because I can easily say today that my clients would articulate to you what they see in me and why they come back to me with, I like to think, trust and honesty being at the top of that pyramid. And then knowledge base, credibility, delivering on their expectations. But what makes someone stick with you for 10, 12 years if they haven't bought an airplane from you? So I never really asked that question, but I think that speaks a lot to who I am and how I help people realize their own vision in private transportation. Because certainly in that span of time, not only did the product evolve, but so did the markets and the market dynamics. And the road or the pathway I had when we first spoke probably was completely different by the time we actually bought an aircraft.
And I think that just speaks volumes to your personality, warm and inviting. And you bonded with those people. They wouldn't have come back 10 years later, 5 years later, if they'd have been put off by that initial conversation. So I say kudos to you for that. That speaks a lot.
Thank you.
It certainly doesn't. And just to add to that, because I think we're in a world today where people want it to happen right away. So I call on you and you're not interested in what I have to say. So now I'm annoyed with you. And now I move on to the next person. But no, it's about fostering a relationship. And to your point, it's the trust, it's the integrity. And you have that and you've demonstrated that. So I'd really like our audience to take that away as well, that it's not about the quick fix. It's not about the hit them over the head and get the money and run. It's about bringing value and integrity. So kudos to you, Janine.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Relationship building. That is a very important idea. I'm glad you brought that up because I wonder sometimes people, when they're out for that instantaneous gratification or reward, they forget that they need to build and nurture relationships with coworkers, with vendors, and especially with their clients. I often tell young people in the sales industry that, I play the long game, as one would in golf, not the short game. And the long game could be a multi-year commitment to developing that client base. And what I want that person who's about to buy an airplane from me is have that total sense of trust and confidence, because if we don't trust each other, we are not going to make a good deal. And they're going to go away not feeling satisfied. And that is your worst sense of advertising, lacking the repeat business.
Yes, it's almost like burning bridges when you get to that point.
Almost, yeah.
Absolutely. Janine, what would you like to leave our audience with as we close out today? And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, so I think we've touched on many important things, especially I think that would speak to young men and women about confidence. I would say, coming back to that subject matter, it's perfectly normal to feel a little bit off kilter, especially as you start to build your career. I would like to say something to the effect that you never stop learning. I mean, when you do, you might as well hang it up because you're going to get stuck in your way and you're not going to evolve. And learning is learning about your clients as well as new means by which to further grow your business. So I'm kind of in that always be an open book learning mode. At least that's the way I try to conduct my own business and myself. As far as getting in touch with me, I am not hard to find. I Google pretty well. But I would say that go to the company website, which is avionltd.com. And certainly there's a contact page that you could go to, and just about everything you need to know about my company and what we've done and what I've done personally is contained in the pages of that website.
Thank you so much. And we are showing the website right now for anyone who is interested. Please go there and connect. And let's also just take a look quickly at your LinkedIn. And I think if you're out there and you want to connect on LinkedIn, please do not send a bunch of pressing cold call information that is not of any value. So I always say, please do your research. Some of these things that people are connecting with us on for LinkedIn, I do not understand at all because it has nothing to do with what I do. And I'm sure the two of you could say the same thing. So Janine, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here today. Again, I'll just leave you with any last word for the audience before we close out.
Well, start each day with a positive thought and practice mindfulness. You'll be a much better person at the end of the day for it.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. We're going to close out. Janine, it was a pleasure. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to join you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Zane, she was fabulous. Thank you so much for bringing Janine to the platform.
Isn't she great? Yes, she and I just, like, we met. She is a big animal advocate, as I am. She's very philanthropic. So we met on several different levels and just found ourselves to have a lot in common just because of that. She's easy to talk to. And yeah, she's got a great rescue dog that I still have. We went over to her house for dinner last night, and they were quite rambunctious.
Oh, that's so sweet. I just wanted to say something before we close out, because I think what Janine said is really important. This book is how you and I ended up connecting years ago when you were scheduled for an interview. And I've shared this story before, but I just think it's so important about the value of staying in touch with someone and fostering a relationship. And so you were scheduled for an interview at RVN Television, where I had a show with Mr. Alcini, Morning Coffee, and called in. I saw your book here and I thought, I want to have her on my radio show. Do you recall this?
Yes, I do. Recall that. Yes.
So I had a radio show on Business Talk Radio, and you were scheduled and something came up and you weren't able to make it. And I was really nervous about asking you if you might have somebody you can recommend. And you did. You recommend Diane Floyd Babe, and then she's recommended, 20, 30, 40 people. And it all started with this. So that's what I want people to take away, is that it's not about instantaneous gratification. It's about building a relationship. And here we are, Zane, together doing a show. So
I know. We have our own show now.
Yes, we do. So I'm going to spotlight you and anything that you want to share with our audience before we close out today. Maybe something that's going on with you, anything about your books, or anything that you've written recently that you want people to be aware of.
Well, I do have one exciting announcement. Neiman Marcus has partnered with me in my little books to offer my books with the Books to Bed program. They have created a little pair of pajamas, size 6 months to 6 years. And you can go, it launches October 14th in Houston. So that will be a big launch. And then you can go online and you can order the pajamas and the book. They're going to give you the option to order whatever book you want of the Bella series. So anyway, that's my new announcement that I'm very excited about and gearing up for.
Well, congratulations, Zane. That is amazing. Are you able to?
Good books like La Madeleine's in there, not La Madeleine, that's a restaurant. Madeline's in there, and The Little Engine That Could, Love You to the Moon and Back. I mean, these are some really big name books, and I'm very humbled and honored to be part of this. It's one of those grace of God things. You meet somebody and you get to talking, and one thing leads to another, and so here we are. So I'll keep you posted how that launch goes in October.
Fantastic, because I have a couple of family members that I'd like to purchase for, so that would be great. So Zane, just for that process that took place, I know when I spoke with you on the phone, this is something that you cultivated on your own. So how long did it take from the first meeting until, okay, we're going to carry your books in our stores?
Well, I had been I had been approaching Neiman Marcus for several years about carrying my books, doing a book reading, and I just couldn't get to the right person. Well, it was just so happened Brady and I were downtown one night for a dinner at the Minute Maid Park where the Astros play, and I just hooked up with this lady. She goes, "Oh, I met you at the SPCA gala. See how things hook up?" And she told me where she worked, and I said, "Oh, I've been trying to get into Neiman Marcus to do my books." Well, it just so happens that was her job. Well, so we met for lunch. We were going to talk about having a book reading, but she said, "Well, have you ever heard of our Books to Bed program? I sent your books to all of the major department heads, and we would love to have that as part of our program." So, like I said, it was just the gift of God, because you just keep following up, and then when the time is right, it just happens.
What are the odds that you would meet the exact person that you were trying to get in touch with?
Because we had chaired the SPCA gala, and she went to it, so she remembered, because my costume was quite outrageous. It was a Halloween costume gala. Anyway, yes, that to me is just the pure grace of God, because she and her good friend, and anyway, yeah, it was wonderful. I was never so shocked in my life when she pulled out that little pair of pajamas. I think it was Madeline's. It was like, wow, okay, I'm in. Yeah.
And for our audience out there, it just goes to show you, if you're sitting in your home eating bonbons and watching television all day, you're never going to make these connections. You've got to get out. You've got to be of service, helping other people. And then the connections will happen. But again, they're not going to happen instantaneously. Zane put a lot of time into this.
And Brady did not want to go. I don't know why. I was dying to go down because the dinner was on the field at Minute Maid Park. So we were able to go to the dugout. And I actually made several really good contacts that night. But again, you're right. You're absolutely right, Dr. Jacalyn. You just have to get out and go. A lot of times you don't want to, but hey, paid off that night for me.
Well, I'm super happy for you and for all of the kids and families who will be enjoying your books in this amazing launch.
Yes,
just in time for the holidays.
Yes, and it's exclusive just to Neiman's, even though they own Bloomingdale's and another big fancy store. They're not going to be selling the little pajama sets, but my guess is they will pick up the books. But yeah, it's a Neiman's worldwide exclusive. So there you go.
I will be purchasing, my friend. So thank you. So Zane, I'd love to just spotlight you before we close out the show and share with people, who would you like to contact you and what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I would love to have anybody on my show that feels like in their heart they contribute to a posh way of living, like JANINE with private aircraft, or people that are in the media, or people that are in theater. I'm going to solicit some people that from Houston, from the Houston Grand Opera and Theater Under the Stars. So anybody that feels like they can contribute to that, the sign up link is online, USA Global TV, and you go down to booking, find my show. And we only do this once a month. So the available dates are circled in red. It's the last Wednesday of each month. So find a month that works for you and sign up. We'd love to have you. It's a lot of fun. Plus, our shows get a lot of views. So,
yes,
it's good for the client. It's good for the guest as well.
That's exactly right. And Zane, we're looking at your website right now, which really looks fantastic. Any place on here you'd like us to go?
Well, if you go up there to that USA Global TV and Radio, there you go. That will bring up.
Okay.
Well, you have to scroll down. But anyway, you can watch that, but then that will also take you to the site. So, but this does remind me, I need to have my web guy put a better link on there just to sign up, because it's a lot of fun to be on this show and to, just to meet the new people.
It definitely is. And, Zane, I know you may have to run. I'm just going to walk people through how to sign up for Yes. Okay, so let me just share my screen. And so what we're looking at is usaglobaltv.com or usaglobaltvandradio.com. Keith Saltayanis, he has a brand new show coming up right after we close out here today. So you're going to go over to book your session, and we're constantly updating our numbers. We're doing it every week now for the number of views. We've got our client testimonials. And then if you've never been a guest before, we welcome you up to 3 times in a calendar year. There's no charge. Unless you want to join our team and become an elevated listener, you can be on our shows as many times as you'd like. If you've been on 3 times and you want to come back a 4th time, there's a nominal fee of $35.97. Why? Because we've already given you 120 minutes of hosting and airtime, so we would love for you to give back to the platform. So keep scrolling down. There's a number of offerings we have. Look for the show, and you'll see that there are more than one page. Go down to see all, click on that, and then scroll here. You'll find the show, click on that, and then you'll see there's nothing available this month. So click to the next month. You see somebody's already booked for that month, and someone's already booked for October. And we've got November 29th open. And I'm not sure, Zane, if that's a Thanksgiving situation.
No, it's not. I looked. It's the
okay
week after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
So let's say you're going to sign up for November. Just click on that. And all the times are in Eastern time zone. So it's 2:30 p.m. And this is a pre-recorded show. So it's not actually going to be live. Go to book. And then you'll see over here, let me get rid of all the things that I have in my bin. So you'll just go here, fill out your information. What's really important is, what are the 3 to 5 topics you want to discuss during the show? Let us know how you found us. Is it through Zane, through a publicist, through Google, some other way? And then, of course, we'd love to have your information so that we can be spot on when we're referring to you and your background. And then click confirm. This will turn black after you fill this all in. And that's it. And then you're going to get an email confirming your registration. And then you'll get a notification 24 hours before the show. And then the show is done on StreamYard. We'll send you the StreamYard link. And that's it. You're ready to go. How was that, Zane?
Well, click that confirm booking. That's important, because I've had somebody fill it out 2 or 3 times, but just never went down far enough on the page to confirm the booking. Could not understand why he didn't get on. But anyway, we got on now. So just confirm booking. That's important.
Fantastic. Thanks, Zane. And here's your information again for people who want to reach out. They can reach out to you on your email. They can reach out to you on Instagram. And then you also have your website, which we shared. Any other way you want people to contact you?
No, that's it. I'm
okay
to respond to anyone who contacts me. So.
All right. Thank you, Zane. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here today. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
You too. You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone, please to reach out to Zane and to Janine. That's why they're here. I say this over and over again, like a broken record, but people come here to provide education, to give hope and inspiration. And I know what you're thinking. You're intimidated to contact them. Don't be, because you never know where it's going to take you. I can tell you what, if you don't reach out, we do know where it's going to take you, which is not where it could take you. So let's watch sponsorship from Zane. She's an official VIP sponsor of USA Global TV and Radio, and also of E360 TV. And then we'll see you back for our next show with Keith Saltayanis. Bye for now.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.